Today in this video, we're going to go over and explain exactly what is your debt to income ratio and how it is calculated when it comes to qualifying for a mortgage. Check it out. Hi, I'm Rhonda Burgess. I'm a mortgage underwriter and real estate broker here in the Nashville, Tennessee area, and my firm is Southern Living Realty Partners. Okay, I felt like we need to do an explainer video because so many people are missing the mark when it comes to your debt to income ratio. It's really very simple. When we calculate your debt to income ratio, we're looking at your gross income. This is your gross income before taxes, before any deductions. This is your gross income. And this, when I'm talking about income, I'm talking about W-2 income. I'm talking about documented on the job income. I'm going to get to self-employed income in just a second. But we're looking at your gross. We're going to take your gross. So let's say your gross is $5,000 a month before any taxes, anything come out. Okay. Then we're going to look at your debts. It is the total sum of the minimum payment on your debts. Okay, so that's your credit cards, the minimum payment on your credit cards. If you're paying extra every month on your credit cards, wonderful. But just know that when we're calculating your debt to income, we are just looking at the minimum payment. So if you have a $500 credit card, and the minimum payment is $25, I'm going to take that $25. That's going to be the payment that I'm going to use. It's whatever's reporting on your credit report. Okay? That's the minimum payment. So, and that includes your credit cards, your store cards, your gas card. That includes your Visa, your MasterCard, your American Express, your Discover. That includes your car payment, any installment loans, anything else that you have. If you have a personal line of credit, whatever the minimum payment that's showing up, that's what we're going to use. So we're going to take all of those minimum payments and we're going to add them together. Okay. So then you're going to divide your debts by your income. And for most mortgages, let me go like FHA, you can't have more than a 41% ratio. I've seen it go up to about 44. So let's say anywhere between 40 and 44%. So what that means is when we divide all that up, your mortgage payment plus all of your debts can't be more than 41 or 40 to 40% of your total income. And it doesn't change from mortgage to mortgage. Just some of them have a shorter ratio, which means like a lot of times on your conventional, you may only get a 36% ratio. Okay. Whereas you have like a 41 and you can go up, like 44, 45. On USDA, I've seen it as high as 50. But when I've seen a higher debt to income ratio be allowed, there are other compensating factors. The mortgage game is big on compensating factors. Compensating factors. Have you been on your job more than 2 years? In the same job? On the same job? If you have switched jobs, are you still in the same field? That's important. But how long have you been on the job? Do you have reserves? Again, let's talk about what reserves are. Reserves is the money you're going to have left once you close, once everything's said and done. And we normally like to see, the underwriting model likes to see 2 months reserves, and that's PITI. We're going to go over PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. That's your total house payment. One thing y'all need to remember is HOA dues, if you have them, are not included in your PITI, but they are included in the debt to income ratio. So let me say that again. Your HOA dues are not included in your PITI. That's only principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay. But we do include that HOA monthly fee in your debt to income ratio. Okay. So what you want to always make sure of with the reserves, once everything is said and done, let's say you have to bring $5,000 to closing. Okay. and in your bank account, and your monthly payment ends up being $1,500 a month. Okay. So once you bring that $5,000 to closing, and it needs to come out of your savings checking, something with your name on it. Okay. Once that all comes out, you need to really be able to show that you're going to have $3,000 still left in that same account, or in another savings account or a checking account or whatever, because we want to see 2 months PITI that is left once everything closes. So if you have compensating factors, like maybe you got 6 months worth of PITI, you're going to have 6 months left, 6 months worth of payments in your assets, in your liquid assets. Listen, don't nobody care nothing about, let me tell you something we used to do back in the day in the mortgage game. We would put in household goods, like $15,000. We talking about your furniture and all that good stuff, because we used to have to pad. We used to have to make you look better on paper than you actually were. Okay. So we used to pad stuff to show that you had other assets. But I'm talking about now, we're just talking about the liquid assets. We don't care nothing about all that. We don't care nothing about that. The underwriting model don't care about that. We don't even put that stuff in anymore. Okay. So it's looking at, will you have money left once this transaction closes? And so the more months of reserves you have, the better. The longer you've been on your job, the better. The bigger the down payment you putting down, the better. See, you got to build up your compensating factors. If you know your DTI, you need to really exceed the normal, maybe 38% on a conventional loan, and you need to exceed maybe that 42% that you normally going to get on the FHA. If you know that your DTI is going to be higher, then you got to have a higher credit score. That's a compensating factor. The time on job, everything. So you want to make your file look as good as you can before it gets to the underwriter. Okay. So that's like the debt to income is one of the main reasons. I just did a video on this. It's one of the main reasons that a lot of people get blowed out the water, is because you haven't accounted for everything that goes into your debt to income. And like I said in my other video, look at any judgments you got. Look at if you got a loan from your 401k, your retirement, and you're having to pay that back. That's a loan. It's exactly what it is. It's a loan against your 401k. Even though you're paying yourself back, that's a debt that has to be included. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you some weird things that are not included, but if I were you, I would include it. Let's say for some reason you are doing a rent to own. You're doing a rent to own furniture, computer, washer and dryer, living room set, whatever. Those things they don't show up on your credit report, but I can see them because I'm going to look at your bank statements. You're going to have to supply 2 months worth of bank statements. Okay. Minimum. So I can see that. Now, it's not going to be counted because that is not a traditional debt like a credit card or whatever. But if I were you, I would include it in my budget. I would either pay it off as quick as I could, give them the stuff back, whatever. Or if you're near the end of paying for it, go and pay it off. Get it paid off before you start doing the underwriting. Because I'm going to see it. As the underwriter, I'm going to see it. Then I'm questioning what other debts do you have that you're not reporting because they're different. They're not going to show up on your credit report. I'm finna question everything on your file. I'm really finna look at your bank statements and see. Because if I see you got money going out every month, or every week or whatever, I'm finna have a question. I'm liable to have a problem with it because you are so close to the debt to income limit on the back end. You see what I'm saying? So just make sure that you look at all of that. Let me say this too about your child support. For those of you who pay child support or receive child support and it is not through the court, That is fine. That is fine. But we're going to need documentation of how old that child is. We're going to need, because we need to know when that child support is assumed to stop. Because see, it's always assumed to stop when the child reaches majority, which is 18, and or graduates high school. So we're going to need to see a birth certificate for that child. But just know that, and especially, okay, my women or men, I'm not discriminating. If you're the receiver of the child support, not only do we need to know how old that child is, we need a birth certificate and everything. I want to see a history of you receiving that consistently, especially if it's not going through the court. So give me bank statements. Give me more than 2. If you want me to see, and you're trying to bolster your file that you've got extra income coming in because the non-custodial parent has always paid, they've been, consistent, they've been paying, cool. Then give your underwriter more than one bank statement. Let them know. Write a note. Write me a letter. I'm going to tell you that. Write me a letter. I love a good letter because then you can answer a lot of the questions in my mind, and then I won't go snooping. But the more questions I have, the nosier I get. I'm just be honest with you. I be all in your Kool-Aid sometimes, because if the file, especially if the desktop underwriter is like this, is like, I ain't gonna turn it down, but I ain't gonna say that they good to go. Then that's my cue that I need to dig. And I'm finna go on down through there. I'm finna go through them banks. I'm going through everything. But give me the letter. If you say, you know what, okay, my child is 12 years old. Me and the father separated when she was 2 years old. We've always had a good relationship. He pays me X number of dollars every month. He cash apps it to me. He Venmos it to me. He Zelles it to me. He brings me a check. He brings me cash money every week, every 2 weeks, and I deposit it in my Capital One bank account religiously every Tuesday. Tell me. Cool. So then you've answered those questions. I don't even have to come back and ask you questions. I'll be like, okay, good. Okay, she got this money been coming in, and they've given me 12, 24 months worth of statements, whether it's Cash App, Zelle, whatever, showing that they receiving this money. I'm cool with it. It's when you don't say nothing and your file is like this, we finna have a problem. We are finna have a problem. But just know that your debt to income can include all kinds of stuff. Like in the last video I did, co-signed debts that you co-signed for or you're the primary for can mess up your DTI. Just know that there are ways that sometimes when you have a strong file, you have a strong credit profile, right? And when I say a strong credit profile, I mean you got a good mix of credit. You got installment debt, you got revolving debt, and you have a history of paying your debts on time. A lot of times, I'm telling you, the underwriting computer, the desktop underwriter, will let you go a little bit higher because it sees, like if you got the high credit score and it sees how long when you put it in how long you've been on that job or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So there are compensating factors, but you need to know what all is calculated against you personally in your debt to income so that you can work on those things and get those straight before you even apply for a mortgage.